This is Scott Becker with the Becker Private Equity and Business Podcast. We come to you daily with short business episodes, private equity episodes, interviews with private equity and business leaders. We try to both have people learn something and also have them be a little entertained as our two goals. Today, we're talking about 5 drug trends, and one of these is somewhat of a spot trend as well, but we'll deal with 5 quick drug trends. First is the newer concept of using psychedelics in microdosing for inflammation and joint pain and chronic pain. This seems to be just starting to be an evolving trend, and we'll see how that develops. I was never much of a doser, a microdoser, or LSD or psychedelic user, but simply fascinating. I mean, for now, I'll stick to the Advil and Meloxicon, not cotton, Meloxicon. But this concept of microdosing for joint pain and inflammation, fascinating to find all these different possible uses for it. Usually we hear about microdosing and for depression and other things. And now, like a lot of other things, you're seeing expanded uses. Similar to the GLP-1s, again, originally for diabetes, now very generally used for weight loss, and then all the other benefits that can come from weight loss, and people talking about also GLP-1s is possibly helpful in terms of fighting addiction and so forth. And that's fascinating. It's a second sort of drug trend we'll follow. The third thing is this fascinating issue, even as cannabis is legal in so many states, the continued testing for cannabis and drug testing, and legal in many states to keep on doing so, not legal in other states, also very much legal in spots where somebody has to drive a motor vehicle or anything for their job, but a fascinating array of different laws and rules out there around drug testing for legal drugs like cannabis, and not necessarily federally legal, but state legal. And fascinating to see the different rules there. Some states prohibit it, many states allow it, and a lot of different guidance on that, depending on whether or not you could treat it, and whether you could test for cannabis in drug testing, even in a state where cannabis is legal. The fourth trend we're watching and we've had discussions about is this concept of how do you treat adult ADHD, and very much the effort to avoid with adult ADHD getting people on stimulants like the traditional stimulants, as the Vyvanse, Adderalls, and so forth, but finding other ways to try and treat, and sometimes those are self-help treatments versus actual medicinal treatments, but especially to sort of watch that body work too, and how that's evolving too, in different ways to deal with that. So far, we talked about GLP-1s, microdosing, drug testing for legal drugs, and then ADHD and how to treat it, and especially in adults or mature adults, how do you treat ADHD in mature adults? It seems like there's an avalanche of ADHD in kids, but also, quite frankly, in adults in the world that we live in with the constant stimulus that's out there and the potential or trying not to use stimulants for people in that area. The fifth thing I'll talk about is medical spas, which has become a hot place for investment by private equity and so forth. This is an industry that's grown from $9 billion to $20 billion and continues to explode the different opportunities and uses for medical spas. It also ties in very closely to the GLP-1s in weight loss, because you're seeing this explosion of the growth of weight loss clinics throughout the country as well. Many of them essentially concierges to prescribe the GLP-1s of different sorts and to see how those go. In any event, regardless of the GLP-1s, regardless of whatever it is that's out there, my goodness, this fight to keep one's weight under control at any age continues to be a challenge. You know, now I'm someone that, and people won't be able to reference this if they're not from our area, but Mr. Eddie's was a clothing store in our area that famously suited people up for big events and family events, whatever those might be. And, you know, at one point in third or fourth grade, at some point, they might have put me in the Husky section, and Husky section is a bad thing. And if you remember that as a kid, and I don't mean this in a negative towards other kids, but for me, that was uncomfortable to be put in the Husky section. So these concepts like GLP-1s, weight loss, joint inflammation became lifelong pursuits to try and keep yourself relatively fit, to not go back to the Husky section. Like, there's an old phrase that I love from it's been used a lot. Don't let the old man in, which means keep on working at keeping yourself younger. And it's a very similar concept of don't let yourself get back to that Husky section. And I don't mean that to be body shaming anybody. This is my own issue, my own challenge to try and stay in some kind of shape. It is what it is. Anyway, those are 5 drug trends that we're watching. Feel free at any time, text Scott Becker 773-766-5322. Obviously, if you want to sponsor a private equity or business episode and be a sponsored guest, also feel free to text us. I'll get you the right people. Thank you for joining us on the Becker Private Equity and Business Podcast. I can't wait to host VMG Health tomorrow on the Becker Private Equity and Business Podcast, one of the great companies out there. Thank you so much. And so thrilled last week to feature sponsored guest, the Swing Capital Group. Again, amazing what they do. Thank you for listening to the Becker Private Equity and Business Podcast. Thank you very, very much.